If you'd like to join the ranks of Patreons and sponsor the show, head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics. For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, you can help sponsor us, the hosts, and our charity of choice. Patreon helps Cellar Door Skeptics create better content, become better activists, and it's going to help you stay healthier by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink each week. Click the link in the notes of the show to sponsor us today because we bring the discussion with the sources.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Oh. Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. It's the first episode of the new year, and we apologize. I'll be honest, I'm just going to apologize right off the bat. I said I was going to do a New Year's show, and like we were going to make it a best of, and then I kind of posed the question, like in passing to my kid. Not pose a question, but pose a statement in passing to my kid. My kid looked at me, he goes, Dad, none of the podcasts I listen to, which have thousands to millions of listeners, do a best of show. He's like, those are worthless filler shows. Thanks, son. Way to make my new year feel better, buddy.
All I know is that's all I listened to all week last week because I worked my ass off all week long. I listened to the NPR Politics Best of show, the Pop Culture Happy Hour Best of show, the It's Been a Minute Best of show, Atlantic Best of. Like I listened to all of my favorite shows. I have them basically on when a new episode comes through, play it through my head. And they were all best of shows. Fresh Air did an entire week. Every day was a best of show. I don't know. I listened to them because I got it on autoplay. So I mean, your son's got a point, but he's also wrong.
So in fairness, I'll be honest. It wasn't all him. I ended up. I actually needed a big mental break from the show and from work. And I spent a lot of time with my kids. I ended up having some sick kids over the holidays. So my vacation was filled with lots of sick kids, family drama, that type of thing. And so I just needed a break for a week. So I'll apologize to anybody that was expecting that show. If you have a complaint or would like an extra show, email me at cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com, and I'll make sure I send you a private message or a private show for missing that one.
This better not be some kind of Goodbye Horses, Dancing Buffalo Bill stuff. You're going to send them like an actual podcast show. Nothing out of Silence of the Lambs.
I'll send them an actual podcast show. I actually have a couple of drunk times when Hannah and I finish recording. He doesn't know I'm recording him. And I have
you start the show. Something that we know when we start the show.
Or when I start the show and he doesn't know. I have 3 or 4 of those recordings of him, and that's minus the David Teach Out one I have. But I have 3 or 4 of those, so if you want a show, I'll be happy to send that to you. I think actually one of them even we talk about our best of on the drunk recording. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Probably.
Anyway, so there's some good things coming this year. We are excited to be doing it in the new year. The one thing I was not excited about, and I did this. I woke up January 1st. I flipped my Facebook open and started seeing President Trump. And then I thought, damn it, this wasn't a nightmare. This is real. 2 years in a row now. This has been real. So I was super excited for the first 10 minutes of the new year, and then I remembered, we have a extremely awful president. And his it's funny because when you look at presidential portraits. I can't even imagine what Trump's is going to look like, right? Like,
Oh,
I
I
just
know
can't even
exactly what
imagine
it's
this.
like. It's gonna look like a guy with no hair with a hair helmet. That's what it's gonna look like. It's gonna.
I mean, did you see his picture? Okay, did you see his Christmas picture that he had with Melania?
No, I didn't.
Man, I'll send that to you. It's insane. It's insane. And like when you look at it, right? They both have their fake smiles on. It almost looks like they took their two heads from separate pictures and put them on a
like
couple.
a Photoshop.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I'm pretty sure it's not. I'll be honest. I'm pretty sure it's not. But yes, his hair like goes whoosh up to the side, and you're like, and it's ultra like piss yellow. It's like piss yellow, and they're like standing, and there's hundreds of Christmas trees in this lobby in the White House, and you're just kind of like, all right. And Trump is wearing the tuxedo with a bow tie, not buttoned, and the pants look like they're super oversized. Like, I don't know if it's because he lost weight or if it's because they're like, we need to put you in bigger pants.
Oh, I guarantee he lost weight. The presidency, even if you're doing it terribly, does things to you. And he's 76, 77. I could have swore he's only like a year. Or no. He's 78, I think it was, because he was like a year or two older than Pelosi. I remember seeing, because they were talking about Nancy
He's
Pelosi.
72.
72. Okay, never mind. But they were talking about Pelosi. She regained her speaker position in the House, and so that was a big, exciting event that happened this week. The entirety of what Trump's been dealing with, as far as like all of the presidency and what it does to you, like I guarantee he's losing weight, and I guarantee that hair's turning even more. I bet you it's like Sith Lord white without like dying or whatever he does. But in the end, like every time they do an interview on either CNN, Fox News, or whoever does it, like I still can't believe he has the raccoon eye inverted tanning line thing. Like it looks so weird. I can't get over it. I don't know. It's just one of those things that, like, this number of years that we've gone through, I still can't get over how unprofessional and how like fake it still looks. And he just seems like he's an imposter. It's a Manchurian candidate. He's an imposter in the seat, and someone is going to come in and take care of business and, you know, get this jester out and put the king in his position, because that's what our country has basically turned the presidency into now. It's almost like a kingly position as far as what we've got going on. So it's scary. It's crazy. Everything is in flux and insane. He's lost power, and in doing so, he's decided to shut down the government and just say, screw it. We'll see. The longest shutdown that I know of was in 93 during Clinton, with a 3-week shutdown, and we're closing in on that.
No, I think Obama actually holds the record.
I could have swore it was Clinton, and yeah, I said the previous U.S. federal government shutdown with 95-96, 16-day long shutdown in October 2013 was the third longest, with 18 days in 78 and 21 days in 95-96, which was during the Clinton administration.
Yeah. See, I thought Obama had the government shut down for over 21 days.
He had 16 days, and then in 78 was 18 days. And then in 95-96 during Clinton was 21. And so I don't know where we're at right now. I think we're closing in on like 10 days. But this is it tied for the third longest on record today. So we're at 18 or 16 today. And so Trump is bypassing Obama today, basically, or yesterday or whatever. I don't know. This is my word of the year. I don't know if you did any resolutions. My basic outlook on the year for 2019 is going to just essentially be exasperation. I'm just tired, man. I'm tired.
See,
I'm already tired, and it's
I'm
still
on
like
the opposite
6
side
days
of
a year.
that.
You feel some? You actually have some energy?
I do.
Really?
I feel a little bit more energetic, and it's yeah. I'm very depressed. Woke up and found out it was Trump still here, and then it wasn't just this Black Mirror dream. Like I just keep thinking Black Mirror dream.
Have you watched?
Mirror dream?
Have you watched? Did you like it?
My son and I did. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. I guess I'll be.
Cool.
I don't know. Is that a fiscal and Evert? Whatever his name is.
Well, they did thumbs up and thumbs down. But either way, what we're talking about is the
7.5 thumbs
Black
up.
Mirror. Yeah,
Bandersnatch.
Black Mirror on Netflix did the first ever, as far as I know, the first ever streaming pick your own, choose your own adventure movie, which is something like 5 to 6 hours worth of movie. So I don't know. It's an exciting thing that came out in the year, and they said that what I've heard is that it was cool. It's not quite what you expect. It's not quite as involved as you would like. It kind of leaves you. It's like a proof of concept. It proves that you can do choose your own adventure movies. It's not optimized specifically for Apple TV or Roku. So warning once on that is whether or not what system that you're on. But I don't know. I think it's a cool concept. I like the idea of interactive movies. One of the reasons why I really like books is that it's kind of like you're diving yourself into it. And I kind of lose that a little bit with movies. So like being able to interact a little bit more, like make it a little bit of a connection between video games and movies. That's pretty cool. I think we're going to see more of that interactive stuff because Netflix and Hulu and the new Disney streaming service, whenever it comes out, like they're going to need to do something new to innovate to bring people to those platforms. And so I think there's going to be, like we're talking the golden age of TV now, I think there's going to be some cool stuff in the future for us technophiles who like to play with the new stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with you. For me, the excitement was it was Black Mirror. Right, and I actually really like that show. So, like for me,
I love the show. The movie was kind of like not as good as the show.
I think it was. I disagree with you. I think it was. I just don't think it and it depends how many endings you took. So we're gonna let's back up here a second. So my son and I went into this with very little research. It was kind of one of those things where he mentioned it, and I was like, "Yeah, I really want to see that." I put it on my list. And he's like, "All right, Dad, let's just watch this. I don't have school tomorrow. Let's just do it." I was like, "Okay, boom. All right, let's go." And then I gave him the controller and I said, "You're choosing everything." And we argued a little bit because he chose all the safe bets every time. You can
actually watch the movie. You can watch the movie and just not touch the controller at all, and you have these weird 10-second lulls in each decision. But there is an on rails movie that you don't have to make any decisions for anyone who doesn't. If you have like decision anxiety, you can literally just sit and watch a movie. Yeah, you can leave it alone and it'll make all the decisions for you, and you can watch the default movie.
That's crazy. I didn't know that. And I think I might go back and do that now. But it was just kind of funny because we were making the decisions, and at first it looked like we were succeeding, right? We were making these really good decisions. Like I was like, oh, it's kind of like, all right, that makes sense. And then all of a sudden, like at the very beginning of the movie, they're like, "You're wrong," and I was like, "What?" And then all of a sudden, it
typical
ends.
Black Mirror fashion.
And I was like, "No!" And I was like, "All right, Monty, we got to make this decision right now. Do we want to just end what we're doing and restart it?" And he's like, "No, let's just go with it." So we get all the way to the end, and like the whole point of it, like we sit there and we both looked at each other, we're like, "Okay, how do we get a 5-star rating?" Because the whole point is this kid makes this video game, and the ending always shows what's rating he got from this creepy kid and his mother, I swear to God, that has a television show rating this game, and you always end seeing this kid being disappointed or not, right? And then you go back to, well, how could you do better? How could you not do better? And like all of a sudden, so like we Googled it. We're like, okay, how do we find that? And my son's like,
"Oh God,
all right, don't do this."
You did.
Dad.
You did the what is it? What do they used to call that? You would go to the video game store and you would buy the strategy guide. Strategy guide, dude.
We were very angry. We did not. We tried like 2 endings and we did not get the 5-star ending. Yeah. And so I told him I don't believe it has one. I was like, yeah, it was a 4-hour night for us. It was 4 hours. We spent 4 hours on this. I was like, there's no way this has an end. No way. And then he's like, no, there is. There's a 5-star ending. And then he Googles and he's like, all right, I found it. And I was like, all right, you have 30 seconds to memorize everything on there. We're not going to go by the playbook. We're just going to, we know what ones we've already chose. And in the meantime, I've been drinking, right? So, like there's, obviously by the end, I'm getting kind of belligerent. So we got the 5-star ending. And then I'm like, hey, there's
yelling at your son.
Yeah.
Choose.
Yeah, choose this. Damn it. No, not that one. And then, like, by the end, there's this secret ending, by the way, that you can get. If you didn't know this, there's an Easter egg ending that you can get.
Always is.
Oh, yes. And
it's video game stuff, so yeah, cool.
Yeah, it literally took us over 4 hours, maybe 4.5 hours to get the Easter egg ending. And finally, we got the 5-star rating ending, and we got the Easter egg end. So we got them. And I'll be honest, like, going through it,
it was satisfying.
Oh yes, actually, like
that's what I mean. So like, there's a satisfying ending to the whole thing. So you got to play with Sly. I haven't seen it yet, and that was one of the things that I was hoping to do this weekend, but I ended up going into work today. Like, I'm gonna check it out. I think it's gonna be great. So I limit any spoiler announcements. You basically had the kids, and obviously we know there's gonna be levels of endings, but like, I mean, I'm interested in it. I think it's a cool concept. I used to read those Choose Your Own Adventure books, and I hated them. I really did. Because
I loved
them just, like,
as a
frustrated.
kid.
Well, like, I just got frustrated with it. So like, this is it's you're probably gonna have take an issue with this. Like, I like the Final Fantasy RPG games because they were on a rail. So essentially, or like God of War, I was getting the best story they could tell. Like, this is like, everything is synced. It's choreographed. It's the best story. You're playing the game in between. It might be limited as far as what you can do, but the gameplay itself, like the controls, what you're doing in the game, was really clean and precise. And but like, you don't have that open world thing. So like the Breath of the Wild, the Skyrim, where it's just like an open sandbox, Grand Theft Auto. Like, I usually lost interest in those games because there was too many things, and the story gets watered down, I think. In some cases, some stories, you can actually pull it off where you have a great storyline and you have the ability to go off on the rails. And so like, but like, I used to love that. So like, I didn't like the Choose Your Own Adventure books because I was like, what you did, you wanted to find the best ending. I used to always be like, I didn't get the one that I wanted. I didn't get the most satisfying ending, and I didn't want to go back through the book, go back through all the stories and decisions or whatever. It's like, I just had this like, I like it when I'm getting. It's like when you go to Hollywood's whatever best of movie that's going to be the top one of the year. Like, I watch the awards ceremonies for the year, and I say, okay, those ones there are probably guaranteed I'm going to enjoy. And then maybe throughout the year, I'll pick a couple that were off the beaten path or whatever. But like, I like to go to ones that I'm guaranteed on. And it's just, it's the same thing with video games. Just like, I never really bought a lot of games right out of the gate. I buy them after they kind of went through the meat and grinder, and I knew what games were good, what games were terrible. Like No Man's Sky was terrible out of the gate. Apparently, they've had a whole bunch of updates, and the game is amazing now. And like, all of these kinds of things, like, I like to just kind of find my way into them later on. Like this movie, it could be that way. Like, I could probably find a couple of answers and go through the storyline and enjoy it. But like, I kind of like the director giving me his best shot of the most entertaining thing right out of the gate. But maybe I'll like being able to choose because it's like kind of the in between that. It's not quite a sandbox, Skyrim adventure where there's you could just spend 100,000 hours doing everything and anything. And so like it reduces my decisions to 6 or 7 possible endings that might be enjoyable, where I can dig my teeth into it and maybe do it over a couple of nights. So maybe we'll one of the upcoming episodes, I'll report back. It's like, I love it, or I was angry and yelled at my TV for 4 hours. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm curious to see what my reaction is going to be when I finally do it.
And that's fine, and that's fair. For me, I love those things
cool.
as a kid. And I would be the kid that what I would do is I'd have a book, right? And it would tell you to go to either this page or this page, right?
You'd keep your thumb. You keep your thumb.
I would keep my thumb in the original, and I go to the first one that was not my choice, put my finger in that one, and then go to the other one.
You have died.
Yep. And then if I died right away, I go back and take the other one. That was me. I was always that kid.
Only life was so simple.
Yeah, so I spent hours.
I used to dream. I used to dream about having an undo button or like a quick save in video games, or like you talk to someone and you're like, you quick save right before you talk to somebody in the city, and you're like, hey, what's going on? Shoot him in the face. Nothing happens. And you hit the quick save return, and then actually find out what's going on. Whatever. Like you could just be a villain as much as you wanted and hit the return button back to being a good guy. Like that whole impulse thing. Like that was something that like video games, awesome. Real life can't do it. It would be cool, but that shows a little bit of the darker side of I guess the carnal impulses that go through the old deaf kid's head here.
Yeah, and what I really liked, and then we'll get off this subject because we've been talking for like 15 minutes about. But
yeah, this was not planned, by the way, everyone. This is just us being dudes.
But what I really liked about it is they talk about different psychological paths, right? They talk about expanding your mind. They talk about the multiverse, and so there's.
Well, the whole point of the movie was like he had to create like a perfectly choose your own adventure game, right? Wasn't that?
Kind of, but kind of not. No. The whole point is this kid basically made a choose your own adventure video game before video games were popular, right? Like when in the 80s when everything was weird and like digital graphics sucked.
Yeah, it's like basically stuff like that. Like this would have been like a Myst. You remember Myst? I don't know if you remember Myst way back in the day.
Yep.
Like the point and click adventure games where there's like multiple endings and like whatever, like he'd be like competing with them, but like apparently technologically way more evolved, because obviously it has to be something that's interesting to us now. So
yes,
I don't know. I think it's a really cool concept.
Yeah. So for me, the whole multiverse type thing that and they pose that right in there. They're like, yep, you make your decision here. It doesn't matter because there's multiple yous, and it's like, hold on. Stop trying to make this about drugs and psychedelic shit. This is amazing. Just that side of it for me was intriguing enough to go after multiple endings.
Well, I recommend Black Mirror. I recommend the Black Mirror show to everyone. Anyone that's interested in those types of things. Like that show is to me, I think Black Mirror is the best, highest quality non-linear show on television. I really do. I think like every episode, it's its own standalone thing. I mean, it is the best replacement to something like the Twilight Zone or the Outer Limits that exist anywhere on any media. It's the best. I love it. And so like the Bandersnatch thing, I was interested in. I just haven't had a chance to chalk through it yet.
With that being said, I think this year we're going to continue to talk about local charities. We might switch it up a little bit. I don't know. But tonight, what I wanted to do was look at how do you choose a charity? And we're not going to sit around here for an hour and go, yes, this is how you're going to choose your charity, blah, 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 blah. We're not going to do any of that.
We're going to do it for you. We're going to allow you to do it.
We're going to allow you to do that. Because the idea here is think about it. It's January. Anything you donate to now is not going to be tax deductible for a whole year, right? So now's the time to change up who you donate to. For example, I was donating to American Atheists. At this current time, I cancel my donation. I'm no longer donating to them. I've took my investment and I'm sending it to another organization. And so what I wanted to do was find ways or different avenues on how you can help decide where you want to invest in. Now, this website here. Go ahead.
I was just going to say what's safe. That's the biggest thing. I'm always scared that I'm going to be sending my money to something that isn't trustworthy.
Exactly.
And so like there's rating systems and things that are out there. And some of them seem a little bit higher quality, a little bit better, a little bit longer term. So like they've been looking at these things for a long time. And like to really get a good in-depth analysis of whether or not an NGO or a nonprofit is worth donations, like that kind of that security that you get when you're looking for something to put your money into, because you don't want to just throw your money to the wind. You want it to be every dollar you want to have its maximum impact.
Exactly, and that's the idea here, right, was that I found a way to try and help everybody, the listeners, myself, find charities that you can donate to. Now, the idea behind this website that I found is not that you can, is you rating other things. So think of it this way. Like, you always hesitate when you donate to GoFundMes, right? You hesitate when you donate to us, Cellar Door Skeptics, for example, because the first thing people do when they listen to the show, they're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to give any money to them. Is it worth my investment? So people think about that. And people can go rate us on iTunes. They can rate us on Spreaker. They can rate us on the website. I mean, they can rate us anywhere they want to. Heck, Facebook, for Christ's sake. So this website, though, takes nonprofits, puts them all together, categorizes them by the type of issue that they're supporting, categorizes them by state, and even goes so forth as to categorize them by city. And then it allows you to either go donate, to see the information, like the basis of their organization, to see what other people wrote, and to review them. It allows you to do all these things at once. And so, like,
it's kind of like Yelp for nonprofits.
To some extent, that's what it feels like. Yeah.
Yeah. It's giving you some kind of way to put some good, solid feedback. So, like, yes, these people are great. Nah, I don't really think they did a good job with my money, or I haven't seen anything good out of it, or anything or whatever. But like, that kind of feedback is important, because the best people that are to trust are going to be the people who actually took their money and donated into something. So like, if you hear some famous person who got paid to be in a commercial for some organization, like, that's not going to be a good review as to what, how, where, and when your money was used, and whether or not you're happy with your donations. It's like, this is a great place to start. So you can find some really great stuff, and then this gives you a good place to find some trustworthy places. And then if you want to do further research, you've found now trustworthy charities to start doing your research and find a place that's perfect for you. And this is kind of a nice hub to start from. Exactly. The name of the website is called greatnonprofits.org. And we're going to post the link for the Michigan one, because then it's /state/Michigan. You can interchange that with each different one. So if you don't want to support just a nonprofit in your state, you could search, United States wide, and look at all the different organizations and see, hey, I want to do it in any different type of a city or a state. You could be in New York and donate in California if you want, right? And so the nice thing about this too, right, is it also, if you allow it to find your location, will find charities around where you're at. It will allow you to get visibility to different reviews. So for example, there's this, when you search nonprofits, I just open it up wide, there's this Dominican Youth Movement USA. It has 5 reviews. If I go back to just searching Michigan, the top-rated one of the top-rated ones has over 281 reviews, right? And they tell you, they even can tell you when the last time they were rated for, whether they were top-rated in 2018, 2017, 2016. And then they even have some where, there's one that shows up called the Foundation for American Veterans that has a 1-star review, right? Like, and so you look at it, and you can actually click on it and read every one of the reviews. So it's kind of like almost an Amazon account without buying anything. Yeah. Right? You can share your story. It tells you how many times this website has been viewed. You could do all sorts of different things with it. And, like, for example, this one, the reason a lot of people are complaining about it is because of the fact that, when you call to make a donation, they then call you consistently. They ask you to continue up your donation. They harass you, that different types of things. And obviously people don't really like that. Yeah. That's what the DCCC does that.
It's not like we don't play a Patreon commercial at the beginning of our show, but, it's a little different. Anyway, yeah. I'm just saying that it allows you to look at, when they post the review, it allows you to look into it. And so, like, for example, it doesn't just bring up 1-star reviews. So the first thing I do when I buy something on Amazon is I look at the reviews for it.
The worst ones?
Something I just want to buy.
The worst ones first?
Absolutely. I always look at the worst ones first, and then I go to the how many positive ones. And then I take, like, a ratio. I'm weird. So I take a ratio and I say, okay, well, they've got 500 reviews or 1,000 reviews.
You get your calculator out.
Yeah, I do. And I go, okay, well, there's 4%, 1-star reviews compared to the rest. And then I go, well, that's how I help make a decision. For example, I had to buy a bunch of tablet cases for work. So I went online and went and looked at all these things. And I was like, screw this. I'm just going to Amazon, type in what I want, find these different things, look at the reviews, and made a choice between a cost, effective one and a positive review one. It came in, worked out well. That's what this website does for you. It also even allows you to share it on Facebook, on Twitter. You can send it in an email to people, and you can also like other people's posts. So, for example, if somebody's posting a really good review and you're like, that's fair, that was my experience, you can...
Yeah, that was really helpful. You can say, yeah, I like that one or whatever.
Yeah. And the same thing ways, you can report different reviews, right? So if you're like, hey, I feel this one is really out of the ordinary, you can flag it for review.
Fake or robotic. Yeah, that's one of the things the only thing that I wanted to basically say is like the only critique I have for the review site, the review hub, the aggregator website, those kinds of things are a regular occurrence when it comes to the internet now. This site is a nice one. It's clean. It's clear. It doesn't seem to be plagued by a lot of the robot reviews. And so Planet Money, one of my favorite podcasts, and a couple of other NPR shows have talked about the review technology problems that the internet itself has. And so like one of the things that we've seen is that the sophistication for reviews has been getting higher, essentially. So like there's more and more cases for bots and things like that to kind of spam a whatever you're selling, or in this case would be a nonprofit, to give them positive reviews so that they would get higher donations. So like it doesn't seem that this site has really had too much problem with that. It's a growing site. Once it gets bigger, this is something that they will have to deal with because it's just a side effect of the internet itself. And so one of the things I want to make sure that, take a look at the reviews, take them with a grain of salt. These are important things, but I don't see a lot of evidence of a lot of the things they talk about when it comes to spam reviewing. And what you see is you'll see robotic, or you'll see very, very similar like template reviews. You'll see the same kind of review. I mean, almost description exactly, and you see a positive review and then this exact same paragraph underneath, and you'll see that multiple places. If you see that on a review site that's reviewing things, that site has problems with spam or bot reviews, and so you shouldn't trust that. I haven't seen any of that. I've gone through probably 15 or 20 different nonprofits on the site now, and I haven't seen that in the reviews. So that's something that if you see that, let us know, and we can maybe even contact great nonprofits and talk to them about that, because this is something they obviously want to be very high in integrity. They want you to be trustworthy of what you're donating to. So it sounds like it's a great place. I mean, this is a good find, man. I appreciate what you've got given for everyone here.
Yeah. So if you want to check them out, there is a link in the description where you can go ahead and find their website, see what they're all about, and I don't know, maybe find a charity to donate to.
Or give us your top ones. Like, what did you find was the best one? Let us know the ones that you donated to, or what did you think was the best one, and maybe we could say who gave us the most positive ones for, and say like there was a winner or something. So like this one was the winner for Michigan or something like that. Like if you guys find one that you think is the best one, you think is the best place to send your money, let us know.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll have more Cellar Door Skeptics talking about Michigan and what happened in the lame duck session. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution. to Cellar Door Skeptics with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Oh, welcome back to Cellar.
With the sources.
The show with the sources. I guess I missed that portion. Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. I guess I screwed that intro back into the show just a little bit. Sorry about that, folks.
We're rusty. It's been a few weeks.
We're a little rusty. Anyway, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all for joining us in the new year in 2019 with number 45 as still the worst president ever in America. Ever.
Disruptor in chief. I don't know if I give him ever, but he's definitely
100%.
Yeah.
Ever. Off the charts.
Yeah, we'll see.
Look,
we'll see.
Is Donald Trump is president of the United States? Just say that a couple times, Hannah. Say that. Just say that a couple times.
Just I usually just
how does
say
it marinate in your mouth?
A New York City real estate failed casino magnate is in charge of all of the things. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. I don't know. There's been some people who've made some really bad decisions as far as whatever, but like one of the problems that you have when you have a president making decisions all the time is a lot of the decisions they make have long-term consequences, and you don't usually have immediate responses or results from those. So, like, it can be like, oh, that's not too bad. He's just a jerk and he's just not doing anything. But like, there are long-term rippling wave effects that happen here. It's like the whole idea of like traffic when some idiot brakes too hard because he sees someone 30 feet in front of him sort of slowing down, and he starts a traffic jam that's like 7 miles long at the other end of the city. Like that kind of thing could happen economically. Like Donald Trump is like, oh, I'm going to stop this because we need to save this. And the next thing you know, you created a traffic jam economically for the next decade. I don't know what's going to happen there. I like to try to be optimistic and to say that he's just crapping all over the bed that he sleeps in, and that hopefully the United States is strong enough that it can survive all the checks and balances and all of our redundancies in our economy, that they can just kind of mush over this 4-year period and we'll see some change. I don't know, but I'm hoping. I don't want to just give up just yet.
I have not given up. I think it's time to fight back. I think that's the difference. Well, yeah. I want to let's create a revolution and burn it all to the ground. So anyway,
are we gonna go live on Saturn now? Is that what we're gonna do?
We might go live on Saturn. Before we get to the last segment, okay. I found my son brought this, and my one son is like, Dad, we sit here and talk about things at the dinner table all the time. He's like, but you claim to like science, but you don't talk about space as much as you should. And I said, all right, so fine. Tell me one amazing thing that has happened in the space industry. And it kind of has become a thing now. Now he makes a point of it. So the first thing he told me about, he's like, Saturn's losing its rings. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't care. And he's like, well, you should care. I'm like, well, I really don't. But, I was like, all right, fine. So I did some research. We're going to talk about that. And then the next week, it was something else. And then this week at the dinner table, he brings it up. He goes, well, you know what? China landed they landed on the dark side of the moon. And I'm like, yeah. No, there's no such thing as a dark side of the moon. Well, technically, no, there's not a dark side of the moon. And we argued for about, 25 minutes. He's Googling, I'm Googling. My wife's sitting there like, oh my God, will you guys stop arguing over this? And I was like, no.
Well, there is.
There's no such thing. No, there is no such thing as a dark side of the moon. That is a Pink Floyd thing. That's amazing, by the way. Nothing against Pink Floyd. That's an amazing album, especially Money. Money's anyway. Let's not diverge from that. But there's no such thing as a dark side of the moon, dude. That's not an existent term that you could use.
The backside of the moon is always facing away from the Earth.
But it's not always the backside. It rotates.
I know.
So it's not technically a backside. It's just part of the moon.
Yeah, it's the whole idea is like the concept of it is the dark side from the facing away from the Earth. So like when the moon is in between the Earth and the sun, going towards what is it, an equinox? Is that when it's usually close to an eclipse? Either way, there's when the eclipse is happening, essentially you're getting the dark side of the moon, the back or far side of the moon is more accurate, is getting full sunlight, and the near side of the moon is getting no sunlight, and that's one of the reasons why you have an eclipse. And so the idea of like the dark side of the moon, it's a fun idea, but it should be the near and the far side is a better way to say it.
And when I think of Far Side, I think of that comic that I absolutely love.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's the best. So yeah, anyways, your son said that the far side and near side, and we're talking Saturn too.
Yeah, so
What's
we
going on
argued about that this week, but the idea behind him and I having these conversations is because he did accuse me of talking too much politics and claiming I like science, but not having a science conversation with him. And then when I do have the science conversations, he claims I don't talk enough about NASA and interplanetary, discussions. And I will admit that it doesn't fascinate. I mean, I am fascinated by it, but I'm more fascinated by time travel and multi dimensions and multiverses and things like that than I am
physics.
us. Yeah, exactly. Than us landing on Saturn, or if Saturn's rings are disappearing. But
yeah, you can't land on Saturn, but you could get your way into there because Saturn, just like Jupiter, is a gas giant. So, like, by the time you got anywhere near any kind of solid mass, you would be smushed into oblivion and probably on fire.
Exactly.
It's hot. It's hot near the middle. So, yeah.
But that's what I thought. I thought, well, okay, so fine. Saturn's rings are disappearing. What does that mean? Does it mean anything? And is it interesting, right? And in fairness to him, I after reading through the NASA article, I do find it a little bit interesting, right? They say that essentially Saturn's rings are draining based on the amount of water inside of what they would call the Saturn pool, right? Because I guess obviously they can't figure out another way to describe large bodies of water than calling it a pool. But they're talking about how the water, the rings are disappearing because of what's happening at Saturn's equator. And I sat there and thought about this, and I said, okay, well, why can this be interesting? Well, this is interesting because they talk about evolution to some extent, right? They talk about how long it takes, for these to exist, and they talk about how long one of the rings actually gets to live. So take a guess, Anna. How long do you think one of these rings exists?
Well, I kind of have the website in front of me.
All right, you're killing me.
So I sort of
know.
It's
100 million years. Essentially, a ring is worth 100 million years. And think about how many rings Saturn has, right? So what does that do if that theory is true and logical? That literally puts Saturn's age at 4 billion years, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Oh, that's interesting. I'll admit that I find that highly interesting.
Well, it's more evidence as to the age of the solar system. So most of the planetary bodies, most of the large bodies in our solar system, they kind of sort of formed around the same time. There's small variations. I mean, we're talking billions of years, if you would call that small variations, because long time is a very incomprehensible thing to the human mind, because we're basically evolved to understand moderate to slow time passing. And so anyways, one of the things that I really like about Saturn and its rings is that basically Saturn and its rings is the last, besides the Kuiper Belt, the last example of matter coalescing in gravity wells in our solar system. So like the matter surrounding Saturn is probably very similar to what, according to just the basic physics, that you talk about centripetal motion and centrifugal motion. Everything has to, when it's rotating, kind of align itself in a ring or a sphere. And so Jupiter and Earth and all of that, when we had all of the material that was eventually coalescing into a planet, probably had rings and things of that nature, and they just collapsed quicker. Saturn is probably is one of the later or last holdouts as to whether that material all fully coalesces into a spherical body, which is really cool. The fact that we can understand that this is happening, the unfortunate thing is that I highly doubt that humans will still be on Earth in 300 million years when the entire ring system is gone. This is just a guess. I mean, just looking at our current state.
I mean, for Christ's sake, we have Trump, so.
But I'm not even talking about that. It's just the fact that in 10,000 years, we've essentially exponentially grown our ability to feed and educate and I guess divorce ourselves from the natural processes of evolution, but also we've increased our capability of just essentially destroying ourselves. It's the entire idea of the I can't remember the name of the system where it's 0, 1, 2, 3 societies where we're essentially a zero society that hasn't figured out how to live forever or to conquer death, and we still just kill and murder each other for frivolous differences, even though the human race is 99% identical. These kinds of things, like seeing the physical evolution, the physics itself, material evolution, you can still see it happening in the rings of Saturn, which is cool. I mean, we're learning new things even today, that it's collapsing and slowly coalescing into the gravity sink that is the planet Saturn. That's awesome. I think it's awesome that we're learning it. And what is Cassini is the satellite that's rolling around, that's measuring all of these things.
I believe so. Yes.
And so into is the whole idea of this entire report is that the rings are eventually working their way in towards the gravity thing. Saturn's rings are mostly chunks of water ice, ranging in size from microscopic dust grains to boulders several yards or meters across. The idea that water is a rare thing. It's pretty common in our solar system via, if you look at asteroids flying through the sky, leaving long trails of obliterated ice and vapor. I mean, Saturn's rings are mostly ice. There's a lot of things that are happening here. So we talk about water being the most important thing in the solar system. This is another example of water existing all over the place. This is whether or not the temperature range is exactly there. But see, the thing is that humans were evolved on the Earth's temperature range. There could be a life form evolved to deal with frozen water, frozen ice, or frozen methane. I think it is the liquid on Jupiter's moon Titan. And so like those kinds of things, like these are all variables that are completely and totally open to the evolutionary cycle. It's really interesting that Saturn is losing its rings, and we're learning more and more about the way our solar system is formed. But we're also learning about evolution, and possibly if we ever get out to actually directly measure these things, we might learn if there's any kind of microscopic life or something that could live in these environments. Just to prove, the whole idea of the Fermi paradox is that maybe life forms all over the universe in a pretty regular, all over our galaxy and all over all the other galaxies, but the chances of it reaching the intelligent level to the point where it can travel between galaxies and between life forms, like the distance is so great that more than likely we will never actually interact with any other species that evolves, even to an intelligent level, somewhere in the universe, because there's so much distance. And if we could find that small little microscopic things live in the waters of in the Saturn's rings or something like that, like these discoveries could show us some new things, and I would love to see that. I don't know if we're ever going to learn anything that specific out of these discoveries, but the fact that people are interested in learning about this stuff still, even though the government is shut down and NASA has no funding right now, this gives me hope for the future.
Exactly. That's very true. With that being said, though, we should transition into the last topic of the night. And this one is a topic we promised before we went on a hiatus for 1 week. A 1 week hiatus.
Yeah.
But the discussion here, right, is what happens during the lame duck session. And we had an episode, I don't know, 3 episodes ago, or maybe 2, where we talked through some of the different reasons why we disagree with lame duck sessions and why we should just basically cut the government off, fund it for the rest of the year, and let the new people take office at the beginning of the year. You know, in Michigan, obviously this is a big thing, right? Because there was a huge power play, right? You know, we had a Democratic governor coming in. We had a Democratic attorney general coming in. We had a huge changeover in the House and the Senate. Not to the point where everything was 100% blue, but
yeah, no, we had
the ratios
we still
changed.
Have the House and the Senate, the Michigan House and Senate are still Republican. So the major changes that we saw were in the executive branch. We saw a lot of position changes towards Democrats in that, but we did not see a lot of changes for the Michigan House and Senate, mostly because of the gerrymandering that happened. So we passed the amendment that's going to be hopefully helping us with that gerrymandering. So in the next election, we should see a much more closer to 50-50 mix of Republicans and Democrats in the Michigan State House and Senate, because that's basically where we vote. We're really close to moderate in between. But we see a significantly higher number of Republicans going into these the legislative branch, and that's part of the issue. So that's one of the big things for lame duck is dealing with the new amendments that have been passed.
So if you haven't been reading, or you've been waiting for us to help tell you what has gone on, I thought it would be good to have this conversation, and I wanted to have this conversation for 2 reasons. One, because of the fact that there was a lot of underhanded bills that tried to get through, such as, for example, the marijuana bill, where they wanted to cut out anybody growing their own pot, basically. That's pretty underhanded. There's other underhanded bills, too. And I thought it would be good to kind of recap some of these, to go through it. Bridge, Michigan has an extremely amazing article that's what we're going to review right now. And if you want, you can skip to the end of the show, ignore this segment if you want to just go read it all. But instead of reading, if you just rather listen to us amazingly half-drunk individuals talk about it, we'll go through some of the bills that got passed, that got signed, that got vetoed, and we're going to talk a little bit.
Ones, anyways.
And we're going to talk a little bit about why we feel Governor Snyder didn't go through all the way to a complete GOP, like what we expected to see through this lame duck session. Because in fairness, he vetoed bills that I would have thought he would have just signed and moved on with his life, and he didn't. And we're going to talk a little bit about why we feel that happened, and, you know, is there some weird undercurrent that it was, or does he just feel guilty for poisoning the residents of Flint all those years ago? We don't know. So the first one I wanted to touch on was a bill that we had actually talked about, which is one of the things that actually sparked me to get angry and do some research on lame duck sessions, because in fairness, I didn't know a lot about it. I didn't know this was this big thing instead of our government that could happen. And then we had that whole segment where it's like, oh man, well, Chris was wrong. You know, I mean, you were wrong, but I was definitely wrong. And there was a bill that they tried to put to the voters where basically it would raise minimum wage, it would raise different benefits, sick time leave, all these other things. And essentially the GOP said, well, we're going to adopt this. And then they changed a bunch of the terminology. They changed a bunch of the numbers, a bunch of the dollars. They changed all these things that could happen. So that was the first one. Senate bills 1171 and 1175 are going to gradually, quotation marks, raise minimum wage from $9.25 to $12.05 an hour by 2030. So it's 2019, and they're going to wait 11 years to raise this.
Yeah.
And they're doing this. They're doing this because they believe this will harm small businesses.
Yeah,
but this was the original ballot measure that we didn't even know was going on until I found out that if they adopt something, they can change the rules of it.
Yeah, so basically there was a ballot measure that was coming through. So basically before the 2016 election, or no, it was a 2018 one. Before the 2018 election, they had to decide if they were going to adopt certain measures and take them into legislative branch, and they would actually be doing voting on them inside the House and Senate, or whether or not they would allow them go to the direct to public vote. So they decided to allow the marijuana vote to go to the people, because they figured that if the Republicans themselves, they figured that if they said, oh, we're going to support this marijuana bill. So it's basically what they're saying is that we're going to take this bill that has been signed by all of the people, and that is supported on a majority level by the state. We're going to take this inside, and we're going to pass it, but we're going to make some modifications to it. And they decided that the negative connotations for Republicans supporting a marijuana legalization bill was actually too much as far as detriments for what they were politically would be looking for. And so they said that no, we're going to leave that up to the overall public vote. But the vote for minimum wage and that kind of stuff, they said no, we're going to adopt that. We're actually going to adopt that into the Senate. We're going to say, you guys got enough petition signatures, we're going to adopt that as a bill, and then we're going to make modifications to that. But the problem is that once it's been adopted and modifications have been made, the people who sign all those petitions and sign all those signatures, they don't get like, hey, you changed everything that I liked. Why did you do that? That sucks now. And that's exactly what happened here, is that this bill was initially proposed by the people, by the voters, by signatures, and the House and Senate adopted it, and they modified it. And essentially what they do is they neutered it. So there would be 11 years. It take forever for the increase on the minimum wage to happen. And where's the benefit of that if you draw that out and throw it out there? So essentially the GOP and the conservatives were getting what they wanted and thinking that this is going to be a damage and dangerous to Michigan businesses. So we're going to hamper and hurt the minimum wage growth that the people of the state all signed petitions for and said they wanted to vote on, and they wanted to bring it to. And so the legislature, this is what they decided, and they basically they brought that forth for Governor Snyder to sign. And it's one of those more interesting things to see what Snyder was doing, because Snyder did what he was expected to do sometimes. I mean, it's the best way I can describe it, because in some of the cases, like, he did not go direct with party, especially with some of the more hyper right-wing things that were proposed in this. So like it's actually surprisingly, I think what it is like Snyder was trying to save his legacy. So like his legacy is basically marred by Flint and children being poisoned by lead, and he's trying to make something out of nothing there. And he wants to make so he wants his legacy to be that he passed or he vetoed these really dangerous things, and he passed the good things, just to make his last few things that he did in office possibly good for the average person. That's the only thing I can think of as far as why he would break ranks and veto some of the things that he did.
Yep. Another one of those was the Line 5 tunnel. Essentially they wanted to create a proposed tunnel underneath the Straits of Mackinac to house Enbridge Energy's petroleum pipeline.
Yeah, so they want to take the pipeline that's there, and they want to make a tunnel and put a new pipeline in that tunnel.
Yep. And I mean, in fairness, to him, it kind of fits his legacy of I allowed Flint to be poisoned. I might just let the rest of the state be poisoned too. Now I'm not going to say that the tunnel and the line will essentially ensure that we get poisoned water. But I mean, for Christ's sake, they said the same thing about, what was that pipeline that there was this huge uproar that went across Native American lands in Dakota. I can't remember the name of the stupid pipeline. Everybody knows about this. There's a huge protest, but what happened is everybody protested this. They still
Dakota
put this
pipeline.
There you go. I'm stupid. The Dakota pipeline. They put this through, and guess what leaked? The Dakota pipeline. Guess what ruined lands? The Dakota pipeline. Like, it wasn't even where you can all sit here and argue about these things, but it did happen. they protested it. It went through, and it's still,
pipeline.
exactly, and it's still poisoned, the water and the land. So, I mean,
well, the big thing, like one of the things that the Snyder administration wanted to do the pipeline tunnel essentially to. Because one of the issues with the pipeline that exists now, the Line 5 pipeline, is really just pipes running, and it's fully exposed into the environment. So they were going to make tunnels so that you would create a tunnel just like you would a subway or whatever. You have a burrowing tunnel system, and then you would run the pipeline through said tunnel, so it wouldn't be exposed to the environment, wouldn't be exposed to anchor strikes. That was one of the big things that happened this summer, is that an anchor strike hit Line 5 and it was leaking, and there was oil basically escaping into the Great Lakes. They were talking about like a Line 5 full-fledged failure. They were saying something that's, I believe it was in the tens to 20s of billions of dollars. Like, we're talking massive and economic destruction of what Michigan has, and its economic profile as far as the lakes are concerned, for all of the transportation that it does, because really the Great Lakes and the interconnective connection between the Atlantic Ocean and working its way all the way into Chicago and also into the Dakotas and Wisconsin, like those are some seriously important shipping harbors, and working way into the Mississippi River. I mean, everything is really, really important there. If we had a massive oil failure, pipeline failure, we're looking at billions, tens of billions, 20s of billions of dollars. And it's like, that's one of the things they've been trying to say, is like, we need to get rid of the Line 5 altogether. Snyder basically said that he wanted to do the pipeline, which would protect it from the environment. And as far as I know, Gretchen Whitmer just recently took office, and one of the first things she did, she stopped the plan. She said, we need to review it. We need to make sure that the tunnel is a good idea. So as far as I know, that's been held up with the new executive.
Yes, it has. Some of the more positive things that came out of this, right? Things that died, for example.
Yes.
Was the homegrown weed ban that died. So a big middle finger
dead.
to Arlen Meekoffs, who is from my district, and a big middle finger to you, buddy. I'm glad you're gone. Yeah. I won't miss you. I won't cry. And hey, by the way, to Mr. Kyle Parcher, big middle finger to you too for trying to.
Meekoff is out?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great news.
And it's just, I'm glad that I'm glad this whole bill died. Another one that died, this is even more exciting though, is the Senate tried to screw over the redistricting. Basically, Proposal 2, they said, hold on a second, folks, let's screw Proposal 2 over. And it's like, no, I don't think you understand. And so what they wanted to do is they introduced this bill that would ban anyone who donated money to political parties from serving on the commission, and threatened civil fines to anyone who lied on applications. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, right? In fairness, that doesn't seem a lot, but it's unnecessary and would scare people away. It's a fear tactic. That was a huge fear tactic. And for example, you and I've donated to political campaigns. I have. It's a fact. Both in local Michigan and as well federally. And they're trying to basically say anybody that's donated, so it's essentially, if you don't donate, then you can be a part of the Proposal 2 and help it. Now, in fairness, I'm not gonna run for the committee. I thought about it, but I'm not gonna run. I'm not gonna throw my name into the committee. But the whole point is why are we banning people who donated? We should be banning anybody if they wanted to do that. Ban anybody who donated more than, let's say, 3% of their salary. I'm okay with that.
Well, the entirety of the whole gerrymandering committee was that what was it? It was 4-4, so 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 Independents, I believe is what it was.
Yep.
And so, if that's the case, then the 4 Democrats, you donate all over. You can have Gretchen Whitmer on your car, on your windows. You can have her on your toothbrush. I don't care. And the same thing, you can have the GOP candidate. What was his name?
Shitty.
Schuette. You could have Bill Schuette all over. Yeah, he was. So either way, you could have him all over your stuff, and like the four people that get picked on that end, but also the independents. So the whole idea of this is that the majority of the people on these committee, 5 people out of 8 and 8 or 4 and 4. So you have 5 people in there are going to be independents, and they're going to be basically non-affiliated people from the voting population. This is what we've talked about on multiple shows. Is like this is a good idea. This is the closest thing that we've come to help adjust each party. Which when the Democrats come into power, can they pick their own people or their own voters? Yeah, no. That's a bad idea too. The same thing with the Democrats or with the GOP doing the same damn thing. So we need to make sure that this isn't just a party-driven system. And this is a great idea. Hopefully this will work. I mean, I love the idea of it, and so we'll see if it actually works in there. But like the GOP trying to neuter the whole system, the new amendment that's coming through to try to stop gerrymandering is a terrible thing. So like I'm glad that Snyder, in most cases, I really do disagree with Snyder on just about everything. He did strike down a bunch of bills that were overreaching, even for GOP standards. So we're like way overreaching, and he did the right thing. He cut them down where they were supposed to be shut down. And Michigan itself, our state, is better for it. I mean, we really do. There is a benefit to Snyder doing what he did. As much as he's been a horrible person as far as health and safety in our country, or in our state and in our country, he did the right thing in these stations. Like I'm curious whether or not it's legacy or if it really is just like his conscious, like whether or not he made these decisions based on like the
legacy.
Right thing to do.
I do think it's more legacy.
I really do. Like maybe he wants to do something else later on as far as a political career. And cause if you don't fix what you did, like the last thing that people know you of is you poisoned a whole bunch of people with lead and Legionnaire's disease. Yeah, you're not going to get another job anymore.
Another thing that died in the House was ending bottle deposits. It seemed very silly that somebody wanted to end bottle deposits, but they did. They attempted to try and end bottle deposits in the state of Michigan.
Do you know the background behind it?
Yeah, the guy owned his own business and didn't want to pay.
Yeah.
He claimed he was losing money by having to do this.
Yeah. It was an undue burden on people who take in returns on cans that they had to deal with can return and whatever. One of the things I talk about is like Michigan and whatever other states that have a 10-cent return value on cans. They compare the return rates versus the landfill rates. And in Michigan, it's over 90%. Can return rates, because literally if you spent every single day, that's all you did was collect cans and take them to a place, you could actually stay alive. There are homeless people who do that. Like that's all they do is collect cans all day, every day, and they stay alive. Like in certain states, there is no value on the return of aluminum and plastic, depending on the soda or whatever. And in those states, they have like 10% recycling rates. In Michigan, it's like 95% because we give money back for it. And it's a huge deal. You pay for it at the retail. So like when you buy your $3.99 Faygo 12-pack, you got to pay that $1.20 for the extra 10 cents on each one, but you get that money back. And so like they find they have a recycling rate that's so much higher. And I can't see anyone would want to remove that because it's an undue burden on grocery. That's crazy.
Yeah. Another one of the bills that actually I was very excited he struck down, and this is, I guess, I don't know how to say this. This is a credit to his ridiculousness, but there was a proposal that looked like a power play move to limit the authority of Gretchen and Dana, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
That they got quite a bit of attention that basically said any court case challenging the constitutionality or the validity of state law could have a higher ability to be struck down before it even got to them, right? So Snyder said
basically the legislature could interfere. Is that what it was? The legislature could interfere.
They could
with
interfere versus getting the courts involved, right? And Snyder says, well, while this is a very well-intentioned plan to ensure laws passed by a legislator are properly defended in court, he feels the litigation position of the state as an entity would only serve to complicate the management of the legislation. I don't know how to say that word. And the governor vetoed the letter, basically, which is good, right? You know, like, essentially, it looked very much so, and we were all very concerned that they were trying to screw the Democrats out of it. And in the long run, he basically said, I agree with this, I don't agree with the wording of this, and in the end, he actually stuck to a conservative note, which was refreshing, because essentially he said, this is going to make more bigger government if I pass this, law.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see the GOP finally actually do something according to their belief frickin' system, whereas they don't want larger government, and he struck this one down. That was nice. It was nice to see that, he actually, specifically went out of his way to do that. And then that's what goes back to your opinion earlier, where you're saying, hey, is he trying to build a legacy, right? Because one of the things Snyder has ignored or basically said, is social issues. He's always basically said, I'm an economic person. I'm not a social person, which is how he's been able to excuse his...
He was a CEO and a corporate leader. That was one of the reasons why he was elected. He said, like, I'm the corporate governor. I am the capitalist governor, and that's one of the reasons why he was given the position, and people got to see what that entailed.
Yes. But what that entailed is a complete lack of discussion or discovery for social issues. For example, in 2015, there was a law that allowed faith-based adoption agencies to decline to work with gay residents or same-sex couples. And they started suing him over this, right? And there's been tons of lawsuits, actually, that have come since then into the government, basically driving and dragging the government down. And, essentially, one of the things that he did, was struck down bills and different things that would allow for LGBT discrimination in the State Department. So did he repeal or go back against the law that he allowed to pass in 2015? No, but all of a sudden now he's changing his tune, and he's saying somebody tried to basically allow for the state government to discriminate against LGBTQ people inside of, the government. And he's saying, well, hold on a second, I don't believe this actually benefits the government. And he's now he also now fought against the efforts of same-sex couples, and he's now saying, well, I think maybe we should change and maybe we should allow more LGBT rights, and then it's good for business. So he's changing his whole attitude here at the last second.
It's basically it's a ploy and essentially a legacy builder. So the question is whether or not he's going to try to do anything. So like people were concerned or questioned whether or not Jennifer Granholm would run for president because she was pretty widely known. Michigan governor, it's a big deal. And now we've proven with the last election that Michigan is a swing state. There's a lot of intensity and a lot of attention that's being given to the people who are in charge of these of our districts, of our state, of our country. And so like when it swings down to like that whole idea of Iowa, Pennsylvania, Ohio being really important, Michigan is too. I mean, we're looking at a solid 500,000 people really made the decision of who was going to be president in the last election, and that's a really big deal. And so Michigan itself, what's been happening when it comes to Snyder and what he's been doing, these are important things as far as his legacy is concerned, and also what the state legislature legacy is concerned, because we have a new legislature that's coming in, and obviously it's going to maintain its Republican tilt, but our executive branch is going to be tilting hard to the left, and so there's going to be the divided government, which is essentially a common theme that's run through our entire government, whether or not you're Michigan or any other state. Which is just what we need to start making compromises. It's not going to be a super majority that Trump was so happy with the first 2 years.
Exactly. And as we close, the Michigan Advance had a great article that we quoted from earlier that I'm going to go back to now. And this article came out the first of the year, and they said, being governor is an awesome responsibility. I have no doubt that Snyder believes he did his best, and I'm sure that many people at the top are very sad to see him go today. But the rest of us deserve a governor who put people above balance sheets. We deserve a leader who fights for his party, especially when he knew it was wrong, more than 10% of the time. That's what a true leader does. That's what I hope Michigan will have in our new governor, Gretchen Whitmer. Excelsior. And that's all I have to say. As we close the show out, we could talk about all these, things that make us sad. We could talk about these things that we wish we could change. We could talk about a show that you can go back and change your direction and redistribute yourself. But that's not reality. Reality is not us coming back and going, yep, I would have done this differently, therefore let's go back 10 years and do it differently. We're stuck. Flint has been poisoned. The GOP has weakened laws. We are now turning around and suddenly realizing that, hey, maybe the GOP wasn't the best bet. Maybe being silent isn't the best bet. Maybe not sticking up for minorities, not sticking up for those that don't have the ability to defend themselves. Maybe that's not where we should be at. Maybe now's the time that we need to go, hey, do we need to compromise our values as progressives a little bit and elect blue? Yes. Because guess what? Next week, we're going to have a segment talking about how the blue is starting to change. Is it changing fast enough for everybody? No. Is it changing fast enough for me? No. But am I going to help support it because I believe that's the best idea that we have, the best way that we can turn this country from a recession, a downslide in social beliefs and social morals? Yes. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to support the blue. I'm going to support local communities, and I'm going to figure out how we can get rid of so that the conservatives that plague our society and bring about neocons and progressives as the minimum to how we can change life and make things better for everyone. Thank you for sticking around with us. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Woo! Thank you all for joining us in the new year. If you want, support us on Patreon, subscribe to us on Spreaker, on iTunes, on Stitcher, I think, on Google Play, anywhere you can get a local podcast, or follow us on Facebook. Did I say Facebook? Follow us on our own website, cellardoorskeptics.com, or email us at cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com. Thank you all for joining us. Have another amazing evening.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com.